So I've been looking through some of my old posts on shroomery.org, and I was just looking through to see some of the trip reports that I wrote about. I don't really write about my trip reports anymore on the Shroomery because I have my YouTube channel, so it's just easier for me to talk about it and log my experiences. But it's funny to look through it and to see. I actually didn't even realize that I wrote about my 4-ACO DMT and MAOI combinations. And this one that I wrote about was actually using 4-ACO DMT FREEBASE. So that one is much more potent than the salt forms of it, like the hydrochloride salt and the fumarate salt. So I just want to share this trip report with you guys because I think it would be an interesting addition to all the trip reports that are on YouTube right now. And it's funny to look through this one because I can see little hints of where my mind was going that actually was a precursor to my psychotic episode in the future. And it's funny that I didn't catch these things, but there's no way I could have because it was too abstract for me to really understand what was going on in my brain. But I can see the bits of what is taking place in my mind to eventually put me over the edge into believing very strange things. And I guess I'll just read it out to you guys because it's a written thing. I hope you guys aren't too bored with that, but I'll just get into it. So it says, and this was written 6 years and 5 months ago. So it's 2012, or towards the end of 2012. So almost 2013. It was, yeah. So it says, hey guys, it's been a while since I've given a trip report, so here it goes. Last night I decided to dose a very large amount of 4-ACO DMT FREEBASE. The dose was 50 milligrams plus, which alone is usually massively intense. But that plus 3.8 grams of Syrian Rue on top this time was just bat poop crazy. I didn't really want to swear just in case I, trigger the YouTube algorithm thing to not like my video for whatever reason. So it came on strong and walking became quite difficult. Heavy disequilibrium in my balance. And that's usually something that happens with with MAOI combinations. I usually notice a difficulty with my balance, usually when I'm getting up from in my bed, because I only trip alone in silent darkness in my bed with these kinds of doses, or any kind of dose. I don't really like tripping recreationally. So it says, the onset, as well as the trip in general, was very, very similar to pharmawaska. 4-ACO DMT alone is usually a bit similar, but this was almost identical visually and intensity-wise to a heavy pharmawaska trip. And I would say that that's not technically true with the experiences, because I wasn't as experienced with pharmawaska as I am now, and now I understand that nothing beats pharmawaska. Pharmawaska is just completely more intense than anything I've ever touched, and I'm scared to touch it. I would be interested in trying this again, but I don't know if I could handle pharmawaska again just because it's so intense, or at least at the doses that I would take. So it says that my visions were extremely vivid. Incredible Mayan, Aztec-like circus landscapes were being seen. There was also tons and tons of entities. My trips have been entity-free for quite some time, so it's refreshing to have such vivid encounters again. It was interesting because I was having true hallucinations of entities in my open eye. The entities were very sexy rave girls with complex patterns trailing off of them, and they were surrounding me, and a lot of them were lying right next to me, and I swear I could actually feel them there touching me. I became godlike as usual in most of my extreme heavy trips. Felt incredibly empowered, like I was responsible for the whole universe creation. And this is what I'm talking about when what tripped me over the edge into believing a lot of strange things. There's a lot of grandiose feelings that start to take place in these trips, and they only really take place in heavy experiences like this. So that's basically what eventually put me over the edge, was just seeing so much and starting to believe things about I guess my importance, or feeling as if I'm the single focal point of the universe. And maybe that could be true in an extent. A lot of people believe in solipsism, and that in that case that could be true, and often I try to think, you know, maybe solipsism might be a right kind of belief, because it makes things easier to think that no one actually has any control over what they're doing, and it's just everyone's basically part of my dream or subconscious, and what they do doesn't really matter because they're not really a real human. That I actually find kind of comfortable. So sometimes I play with that kind of mentality when I experience I guess upsets and social problems, or heartbreak, I guess, and you know, that's something I'm going through right now. So sometimes I go into the solipsism thing and think that might be a good perspective for me to help me deal with whatever's going on. I don't know if that's right or not, or if that's even good to think, but I try to do whatever I can to rationalize my pain, I guess. And then I wrote, I began to feel very sick. I had nasty taste of 4-ACO DMT in my mouth, and something happened to me that has never happened before. I actually had to puke. I have never puked in all my psychedelic eating career, and I have ate some pretty messed up things during combinations before. And this, as I'm writing this, I wasn't as experienced with psychedelics. I've puked way more with specifically Pharmawaska. I usually puke with that. I only had a few Pharmawaska trips when I wrote this, so it's understandable that I didn't experience a lot of the nausea that I do experience now, and I puke very commonly with Pharmawaska. So I ran downstairs and immediately began to puke violently until I was gagging. I felt I was losing consciousness and almost passed out. I was thinking I might have taken way too much and might have overdosed, but I'm pretty sure you can't die from that kind of dose. Bit of an ego death moment there. After the puking was over, I felt much better. Anyways, that's about it. This was one of my most intense trips yet. Oh, and something strange about my 4-ACO DMT. I had been dosing it for a long time, and I've eaten almost a gram of it by now. I had 3 grams of the 4-ACO DMT, but when I scaled the bag, it was like 2.5 grams. I'm sketching because that's not possible. It was like powder. It was a powder-like substance, but now it's very hard, solidified goop. I started to think that the 4-ACO DMT stash was alive or something and was gaining weight, and I'm like, what WTF? So that was another weird thing. What I was assuming that for some reason when it changed from a powder to a goop, because apparently the FREEBASE does that, it starts to change form when it oxidizes. For some reason, it seemed like it had more weight after it was in the goop stuff. So that was pretty bizarre. I don't really know what happened with that. I'm assuming that maybe I miscalculated how much doses I was taking and probably took less than I imagined. But it's just interesting that I thought that it was gaining weight. So that's pretty much it. The puking thing was a little bit, I mean, at this point I really understand why I was puking. I mean, it was a huge dose, and it makes sense if you're mixing with MAOI. Like when I take MAOI, it makes me gag, and I've puked before just trying to get it down. So like when I drank it, it just pretty much projectile vomited right back out because it's so nasty. It tastes like very stale old dirty coffee beans that are just the worst you've ever smelled, and even smelling it just makes me gag. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I do have 4-ACO DMT, so I could try another MAOI combination with it, and maybe I could do that before I try mixing it with DMT orally, but that's gonna be a while from now. I'm still staying pretty sober because I'm still dealing with a lot of mental struggles and feelings of loss and things like that. So I feel like until this stuff passes, I can't really indulge myself in these experiences because I don't really want to put too much pressure on me psychologically. And it's definitely a lot of pressure to put yourself through when going through these kinds of things. So I hope you guys appreciated that and thought it was interesting, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.